Jambo, Jambo.
Jambo.
Jambo, Jambo.
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 Okay, welcome. Welcome to Africa. Putting together this trip, I just told you, was very daunting in getting the slides down to 1 hour. But it was also daunting putting together a trip of a lifetime for Glenn and me. In the period of 3 weeks, a little more than 3 weeks, we crossed 2 continents, Europe and Africa. We flew over 2 oceans, the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We visited 5 countries. We were in the Netherlands, Tanzania, Zanzibar, Kenya, Zimbabwe, as well as spending 5 hours in a very cramped airport in South Africa, Johannesburg.
So, the trip, the conception of the trip actually started the year before. We were on a trip with Overseas Adventure Travel, or OAT. I think many of you know it. Can you hear it?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, and there were 3 people. We went to Iceland, and there were 3 couples on the trip to Iceland with us who had been on this trip, this Africa trip, the year before, which would have been 2017, and they talked it up like it was the greatest thing ever. So Donna and I decided we wanted to do that, and we started looking at some of the logistics of it, and realized that we would have to fly to New York. That was in the same time zone. And then we would have to fly to the Netherlands, Amsterdam is what I was trying to think of. And then we would have to fly to the Kilimanjaro airport in Tanzania, which was 8 hours on its own. So we decided to break up the trip and spend 2 days in Amsterdam before we flew on to Arusha in Tanzania. Now, the couple next to us when we got on the plane in Amsterdam had flown from California to New York, spent a few hours, I don't know which airport they were in, then flew to the Netherlands, spent a few hours there, and then flew out on to finally made it to Arusha and Kilimanjaro. So they were beat. They looked like they'd been through the ringer twice. So we decided we'd made the correct decision.
So we spent a couple of days in Amsterdam, and during that time we walked the streets, we took a boat ride on the canal, we watched them making cheese, and of course we ate lots of it and brought it back, cruised down the canals, and we were absolutely certain that we were going to be killed by the thousands of bicycles on the streets. And any of you who have been to Amsterdam will understand that. You really take your life in your hands. And we thought we were going to be killed there before we even got to Africa.
All right, I want to talk about the true size of Africa. Most people have a incorrect impression of the size of Africa because of the, it's called the Mercator, it's called when you take a spear and lay it out flat. It makes the protection. Thank you. It makes the countries near the equator look relatively small, and the ones near the poles look relatively big. So people figure, well, Africa's kind of small. Africa is not small at all. It's huge. Somebody laid this out. There's the USA, there's China, there's India, there's Japan, there's Europe, the European countries. USA is only about a third the size of Africa. So it is one huge continent.
So this shows our itinerary. You saw the size of Africa, or all of Africa. We went from Kilimanjaro in Arusha to Tanzania, from Tanzania to Zanzibar, and that was my very favorite place. You will see pictures of that. To Nairobi, Kenya.
Zanzibar is a little spot right there.
Yeah, it's so small you can't even see it on a map. And it's about 25 miles from the mainland. Nairobi, Kenya, to Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, to Johannesburg, to Atlanta, to Pittsburgh in 3 weeks.
All right, this was our guide. That's his name, Goodluck Godson Kambe. He is one of the most remarkable men, if not the most remarkable man I have ever met. He knew all about Tanzania. It was his country. He knew the history. He knew the geography. He knew the animals. He knew the mammals. He knew the birds, which I was very happy about. And some of the things he did, when he took a trip like this, he would stop at like a CVS type pharmacy and pick up a dozen or so reading glasses. And as we went along, we would stop at different, markets, villages, whatever. And if people were having trouble seeing, they knew he was there, and they came and asked, and he would give them glasses. So this was all on his own. It had nothing to do with any trips he was doing. Plus, he spoke 4 languages. When he left us, he went back and started the same trip over again with a bunch of Spanish tourists. So this guy was remarkable.
And his philosophy was always show not only the best of the best, but show the poorest of the poor, and really wanted us to get to know the locals. So it was a group tour, but we went off the beaten path so many times, and it's some of those adventures we're going to talk about. We saw what it was really like to live in Africa. We experienced posh places, the poorest of the poor. And his favorite saying was Hakuna Matata, no worries, everything's gonna work out. If we got stuck in the road or we didn't know where we were, got lost, Hakuna Matata, and we finally went along with the crowd.
All right. These are the International Harvester Jeeps that we had.
We lived in them.
They almost. They didn't have air conditioning, but we had to keep the windows closed most of the time because of tsetse flies. Also because of dust. There were 15 people in our group, and we had 3 Jeeps, each one with its own driver. The Jeeps were all in contact by radio. So every day we would take 2 what they call game drives, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, of about 3 hours, more or less. And we'd all go out in different directions, and if one of the Jeeps found something of interest, they would signal the other Jeeps, and we'd all get together to see the leopard or whatever they had found. Now, they had to pack our gear in the back there, and you'll notice most of it is not particularly colorful because apparently bright colors attract tsetse flies. So we were mostly in beiges and greens and what have you. The neatest thing, I was starting to say everybody got their own window seat because there were only 5 people in each Jeep. But if we had a real good sighting, something to take a picture of, the top came up. You could put the top up and you could stand on the seats. That by the way, in the back right there is Donna. And we were sitting at this point waiting for a herd of elephants which was coming towards us.
Towards us.
You'll see that picture later.
Okay. So Arusha, Eastern Africa, was our first stop. And discovery was absolutely the key. At a moment's notice, Goodluck would get off the beaten path, drive through a field, off the beaten roads, and he wanted us to experience day-to-day life. We walked through villages, we walked through farmers markets, we were encouraged to talk with the natives, and we did. We were asked questions, enjoy the people, and we absolutely did, day in and day out. We also stopped at a place, and Goodluck said, "You're in a strange country, I want you to try this." We drank homemade banana beer. Yeah, it was the worst thing I have ever tasted in my entire life. But we were polite, we drank what they gave us. What?
We sipped it.
Yeah, we sipped it, right. We visited the home of a poor family, and it was a family that had 10 or 15 people in a kind of a thatched hut. And we sat around the children, we talked and played with the children. And as we left, I asked Goodluck, how much do they pay for rent on this place? For 15 people, $5 a month. We visited a women's cooperative and watched women making coffee and cheeses and flowers, dried flowers. And of course, it was another opportunity to purchase. And in Arusha, there were so many different experiences that we had. We're only going to focus on a couple of them. The Safe Water Ceramics, a day in the Masai Mara village, picking cotton, and church. Yes, you're going to go to church again today, just for a few minutes. But the goal for Good Luck was to really get us to know the locals. And every place we visited, we saw and were mobbed by smiling, happy children. And I have a husband who is also a child. And they sure loved us, but they especially loved Glenn. Glenn, who had a small backpack filled with all kinds of toys to hand out to the kids. And something he does on every single trip we've done, anywhere we are in the world, Glenn has a backpack of toys. And you can see, that was the one he gave out in Africa. And you can see the woman on the right has got it. She was trying to show her children how to use it, and there was a little kid in the background that had one also. So that was Glenn's main job when we were in the cultural areas, to play with the kids.
Somebody had to do it.
Right. So another example in the villages when we were through there, and this is one that's dear to my heart. We went to the Albino Women's Center, where formerly abused albino women felt safe. We had to go through locked gates to get in there. It was a compound that housed the albino women. And people with albinism in Tanzania face lots and lots of challenges. People with albinism, 80% of them die of skin cancer, mostly because they didn't know at the time that the sun, the African sun, caused cancer. The African people are also very, very superstitious. And many believe that albino Africans bring bad luck. And so they would get killed and their body parts would be used as good luck charms. But we were there in 2019. 2018, a law was passed saying that no more killing of albino women or children or men. We were there in 2019. That's why the women were still behind compounds, because they were still killing albino women. Just to get a couple of pictures of the compound, I went online and found that the albino center is gone. It is no more, so I have no idea what's happening then. But because this was run by the Mennonites, and because I come from a Mennonite background outside of Philadelphia, this was kind of special to me. These women made fantastic garments, and I have some things in the back of the room. Look at afterwards to see the fine work they did.
Okay, I'll take this one. I was really impressed with the resourcefulness and the ingenuity of the people. This is a market, and we probably visited 6 or 7 markets, different markets. This guy rides up on a bicycle, and he's got a grinding wheel on the back of the bicycle. He gets off the bicycle, he takes the chain and turns it into a figure 8. Then he turns around and starts pedaling, and of course the wheel's going. And then people bring over their knives or scissors. This is a machete, and he sharpens their tools. And when he's done at this particular market, he turns the chain back to the correct way and turns around and takes off to the next market, maybe 12, 15 kilometers away. So he found a niche, something that was needed. He filled it. That's how he kept himself and his family fed. And just one thing after another, we saw this going on, people making do, and in clever ways.
Right, and I think this is the village, Glenn, where we were given Tanzanian shillings, and we were asked to buy as much as we could buy in the way of food at the least amount of shillings, and we were kind of pitted in little groups. and it was a little contest. And Glenn and I and our team came in, we bought the most food for the least amount of money. And what we did with that then is we took that food with us. We had it refrigerated in one of the buses, and we made a meal for an African family later on that day. And of course, we bought some things in the markets, and I have something in the back to show when you go out. Take a look in the back there. One really, yeah.
Were you able to eat the street food?
We did not eat the street food. I don't think you didn't, did you? No, we did not. We were asked to. We were told it was safe, or if it was something that was not safe, Good Luck would say, just don't taste it. We drank the banana beer, and that was in one of the markets. Okay, so this was a really interesting day, and I have several pictures of this one. This was the Safe Water Ceramics of East Africa, and we learned about their efforts to give women clean access to water. It was co-founded by an American woman and a volunteer potterer from East Africa, I'm sorry. At the end of our tour, most of us bought at least one system, and we put them in the Jeeps. And during the next few days, every time Good Luck would pull off to the main road, it's because he saw a group of women filling their jugs with bad water. So he'd show how the filtration system worked while we entertained the kids. But before we get that, Glenn, just say a few words about how they made these filtration systems.
Yeah,
It's fascinating.
Ceramic pottery is made pretty much the same way all over the world. You take clay and you form it into a bowl or a ceramic jug or whatever, and then you fire it in high heat till it turns it into ceramic. They put one extra step in here. They had a big machine, and they put the clay in, and they put sawdust in with it. I don't know what the ratios were, but they mixed it and mixed it and mixed it until it was all mixed through, the sawdust. Then when they fired it to form it, the clay into ceramic, the sawdust burned off. It was very hot, a thing. So if you pour water into any of these pots, it'll dribble through, just keep coming through little bits. But the holes were so small it blocked off any insects or insect eggs or bits of plants or little rocks or whatever, because these women were getting their water from questionable wells or streams or something like that. So that was the way they filtered the water for them.
So while Good Luck was showing the women how to use the filtration systems, we were interacting with the women and children. And one of my prized pair of earrings, most of you know that I wear earrings all the time, no matter what. I get out of bed and put a pair of earrings in. There was a little girl standing next to me, and she kept pointing to my earrings. I finally said, "Do you want these?" "Yes," she said. So I gave them to her, and I watched her walk away, and I thought, I love those earrings. But it made me feel so good that she has a pair of my earrings. So anyway, one of my prize earrings is gone. Meanwhile, Glenn was handing out his toys to the kids, and after Good Luck had finished, we were asked, does anybody want to put one of these new filtration systems and pails on your head just to see what it's like? Somebody raised my hand. And that's me saying, I don't think I want to do this, guys. But they prevailed. And so it took 2 people to put this 40-plus pound pail on my head. And you notice there's a scarf between the pail and my head. That's called a pañuelo headscarf that the women wear. And you notice the woman behind Good Luck? She's helping him put the pail on my head. And they say, "Walk, Donna." And I said, "No. Take this pail off my head," which they did. And she puts the pail on her head and starts walking. And this is a typical walk for the African woman. She has to go to the water at least once, two, sometimes 3 times a day, sometimes a mile, 2 miles at a time, with the empty pail, fills it up, walks it back for her family. And can you see, maybe you can't, it's stupid, she's looking to her right. She's looking at me and saying, "You wuss." I'm sure that's what that look was.
I think it was more, "Don't quit your daytime job, lady."
Another interesting day when we went off the beaten path. Again, good luck just all of a sudden took off. And you can see the Jeep, I think, all the way in the back. He took us in the middle of this field. This family was out, they were picking cotton. And he said, "Okay, folks, out, help them pick the cotton." And we were out there for about an hour. It seemed like 5 days, but it was in the hot African sun. We picked the cotton, talked to the family, they talked to us. And of course, Glenn gave away his toys. And
I was almost out by then.
you were almost
I
out
could
by
have used
then,
three,
right?
3
okay.
dozen.
Okay, so it's another experience of our African trip.
Did you wear protection on your?
No, Gretchen, I wore no protection, and I'll tell you what, my hands were sore for days. It was not fun, easy picking cotton, but again, this is what good, right. And driving along on another day, suddenly, again, pulled off the main road, down a dirt road to a small church. And Good Luck says, "Hey, you're invited to join in the singing at a Sunday worship service. You don't have to go." A few of us did not go. A few of you did not go.
No, there were birds out there.
So this little girl was just wonderful to watch. And I'm not going to show you. I think this goes on for a minute or so, and I'm just going to show you a small portion. But this little girl just fascinated me. I just wanted to get up and dance. And a lot of you in here know that I love to dance. You just get good music and I'm out on the dance floor ready and raring to go. Well, they asked us to come up and dance with them. And for those of you that know that I do like to dance, you're going to see where you're making fun of me because I did everything wrong. And so, see that gal on the lower left-hand corner with the striped? She finally stopped the whole thing and made me get up, and she showed me how to do it the right way. So you'll see where I'm out of sync, but it's just another part of the church service. See, I was following the ministers in the front.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to show you any more.
everybody else was wrong, but she was right.
And there she's talking to me and she's saying, "Let me show you how to do it." Then I have another video when I did it correctly, but I thought you'd get a kick, you could make fun of me too. But that was a day in the church. One of the highlights of our trip, of course, was a day with the Masai Mara, the semi-nomadic people. They're found in the Serengeti, they're found in the Ngorongoro and the Masai Mara areas of Tanzania and Kenya. They live in kraals, which are enclosed villages. The men raise cattle, and the women produce the most beautiful beadwork. And I have several examples in the back room there of the beadwork that they make. We helped thatch a roof. We watched a bloodletting ceremony on one of the cattle, and I have a picture in the next slide of that. And the purpose of the bloodletting ceremony, in fact, that's the very first thing they did with us when we got into the village. The purpose was to allow a warrior to drink blood for health reasons. Now, we were all offered a taste of the blood. No, I'm sorry, we were not. The men, it's only a men's ceremony, the men were offered a chance to taste some of the blood.
I told him I was a vegetarian and couldn't do it.
Right. Okay.
Is that guy jumping in the air?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm going to show you a picture of them jumping. This is what the Maasai do. On the left is the hut where the chief lives with a rotation of one of his 5 wives. That's just typical. It's what they do. All of whom we met and interacted with, and I'll show you a picture of a couple of the wives. And the men were so anxious to show us their jumping expertise.
The women with the collars on are the wives. Yeah.
And you notice all the little kids following along in their big brother's footsteps. This is where they're jumping. I have a picture, I have a video of this one, and a couple slides down where they are. The boys are trying to outdo each other in their jumping. That's the bloodletting ceremony on the left. And on the right, I'm in the green. We're tanning hide for the roof. And we had one woman who actually got up on the thatched roof to fix a hole that had happened. This was wife number 2. I was walking along by myself. All of a sudden, there was that cone put around my neck, and I had a baby strapped to my back. I guess she thought I needed a grandma fix, and after she had the baby on my back, she walked away. I think she wanted away for a cup of tea, and she thought I would take care of her kid while she was doing something else. But this is one of my favorite pictures, as is this one. This is wife number 1 with her little one. At the end of the day, we all gathered around the chief and his 5 wives, and we were encouraged to ask any question whatsoever, open conversation, and questions we had about their way of life, their customs, anything we wanted to ask. One person actually asked, how do you keep up with all these wives of yours? And what do you do if one of your wives does not get along with the others? And he answered very truthfully. And if anybody's thinking of raising your hand and saying, so what did he answer? What's what's done in Africa stays in Africa. Okay, but he did answer us, and he answered honestly. And the wives and the chief got to ask us questions, and it was a wonderful conversation of 2 very, very different cultures getting together and just being very open with each other. It was a wonderful experience. That was one of the highlights of our trip. These 2 photos really don't need an explanation. When a woman comes up to a man with that round collar on, it means she's courting him. And the dance cements the relationship.
I'm not sure, but I might be a bigamist.
I just had to show that one. And then this one, there's no notes, but this is the typical teenage boys trying to outdo each other to see how high they can climb, because that's what the Maasai do in their ceremonies. Jumping. I'm sorry. Notice the little kids in the background trying to do the same thing.
There he goes, the little one.
There he goes. There he goes in the background. Okay, I think you get the idea of that one. It was a fun day on the and the picture on the right is from the top of the hill, looking back on the entire Maasai village as we were leaving. From there, we had another experience, spending part of a day on the a school, a Maasai school. Every OAT trip, those of you that have been on one know that we spend some time in a village with the people, and this one was with the children of a Grand Circle school. Glenn and I had a duffel bag packed that we took with us, filled with coloring books, pencils, crayons, toys, anything we could figure out that we could get and get on a plane for the school children. In this one-room schoolroom, there were approximately 45 to 50 children, only 2 teachers. So any of you teachers in here, if you think you had a lot with 20 students, this was 45 to 50, 2 teachers. And it was a one-room schoolhouse. Each of us was invited to sit with a small group of children, and these were mine. The ones on the left were mine for the day. And boy, did we have fun. They tried to teach me to count in Swahili. They didn't do well. I tried to teach them a few English words, but we basically just enjoyed each other's company. Of course, all the children loved to have their pictures taken, so here are a couple of pictures that I took. And we had a large map that we brought with us of the United States. And our group of people on the tour came from all over the United States. So we had quite a few states. Each one of us would talk about our state and say one thing that we knew about it. Of course, it was like Pittsburgh Steelers, one word, because they didn't know much English, we didn't know much Swahili.
Donna, is that all boys?
Okay, well, wait, here, let me go back.
There.
Yeah, these are mostly boys. The girls were in a different part. Thank you for the question. Because on this one, there are some girls. I was finally able to get some girls to join me for a picture. So the boys and the girls were pretty much separated.
How do they earn their living? Are
The
they
families,
farmers?
pardon?
The people, these villages that you went to, are they all farmers or herdsmen, or what did they do for a living?
That, yes, and I'll show you some more pictures of a tradesman. The boy on the bicycle, that was his trade. That was his office. That bicycle that he brought into the markets.
Plus the mothers of these children, well, I think that's the next slide, isn't it?
That's a bit, yeah. That's the next slide.
They were making lunch for everybody.
In the back of the school, parents were cooking for our lunch. And from there, we actually drove to the home of one of the students. And this is one of the students that was in my little group, his mother. And this was a kind of a really special story. The picture on the left, and you see that's me cooking the meal. That's where they cook their meals, outside their thatch roof huts, houses. But we were invited, and once we did that, we sat down with the woman of the house. And hers was a really phenomenal story, and it's kind of typical of the kinds of stories that we heard the whole 3 weeks we were in Africa. She was survival. She was raped when she was a teenager. She was married to a very abusive man and had lots of children. And she finally, this shows you the strength of the African women. She left this abusive relationship, took her children, a couple of brothers and a sister, and she moved to this part of Eastern Africa. And they built a small business. Yeah, thank you.
Basically.
They built a small business. This is kind of answering your question. They made from the earth. They made bricks. They put together bricks and sold it to the other people. They really worked together. If somebody had a skill in one thing, somebody had a skill in something else, and they traded back and forth. So we all had to take a gift as a hostess gift, and my gift was one of my paintings, and I was so excited. And this is just from a painter. The picture I gave her absolutely matched the wall color of her house.
Strictly by chance.
Strictly by chance, yes. Okay, Glenn, now let's talk about the games and the birds and the animals.
Yeah, this is mainly what I went for. We went to a couple of national parks, Tarangini National Park and Serengeti National Park, and also the Ngorongoro Crater. You might have run across that on some of the David Attenborough specials. It's a caldera of a long imploded volcano. It's got high walls on every side. It's got a lake in there, and it's 12 miles in diameter, so it's a lot of room in there. And the animals here have everything they need, so they don't migrate like many of the other animals in Africa. So they're there all year. Now, Serengeti means endless plain, I think.
And it's a protected area, and the multitude and diversity of wildlife is really unrivaled anywhere else in the world.
So later, a few slides down, I'll tell you about the Big Five and the Ugly Five.
But we spent about 5 days in the Serengeti. And so Glenn, you want to tell us about our living
Yeah, this is our
accommodations?
5-star accommodations. Canvas tent. It had, we had 2 chairs where we could sit and watch the sun go down. It's got a table with a basin on it that we could wash our face and brush our teeth and wash our clothes.
All in the same sink.
Okay, the neat thing about it is this pulley system, this pole back here. That was the shower, shall we say. We tell one of the people, one of the staff, that we wanted to take a shower. He'd bring over a bucket of warm water. He would run it up the pulley, dump it into a holding thing. Then we would turn on the faucet and wet ourselves. Then we would soap up, and then we'd say, okay, we're ready for the next one. Tap on the thing. He'd run another bucket of warm water up and run, and we'd rinse off. That was pretty much it.
This is too much information, but when we had to go to the bathroom, there was another area, and he would get in the back and then
Run water again.
Run water.
Run buckets of water again. Thought we weren't going to talk about that.
oh, Lord. Okay.
Anyway, this was neat. We had to put the curtains down every night and close up without screening, but we had to close it up because of what was it? Warthog? No, not warthogs. The hyenas were around. Plus, we could hear lions roaring in the distance. So nobody went out at night.
How hot was it at night when you tried to sleep?
About 90.
It was hot. We were only about 100 miles south of the equator, so it was quite warm.
It was warm. Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
next. Let me start with trees. These are the English names. I don't know what the native names are, but this one in the middle is called a candelabra tree. Okay, kind of a reasonable name. This is a sausage tree for obvious reasons. This is a baobab tree. Everybody thinks they're found in Madagascar, and they are, but they're also found in Tanzania. There's a picture of it back there. It's also called the upside down tree because when it loses its leaves, it looks like the roots are sticking up. And these two are acacia trees, thank you. There are about a dozen different acacia trees. And this one is easy. It's the flat-topped acacia, okay? This is one of the other 11. I don't know which one. They all look pretty much the same. There's very little shade on the Serengeti, so animals tuck in under these few trees that are around to stay out of the midday sun. These were elephants under this one. We also saw zebra and different kind of antelopes staying out of, I don't know what those look like, maybe birds of some kind. But those are the different trees we ran into. Okay, the big five: lion, leopard, elephant, Cape buffalo, and rhino. These were named by the mighty hunters in the early 1700s from Europe who came to prove their masculinity by shooting these things. These are the five that if you wound them, they charge. Anything else you shoot, giraffe or something, it'll run away, but these five will charge. So it was considered, a measure of manhood to shoot these things. What the natives told us was that these mighty hunters had 5 guys behind them with guns in case they only wounded the thing. So you wonder just how mighty these hunters were. Anyway, somebody said, well, we got a big five, and we've got pictures of these. And how about the ugly five? Well, hyena's ugly, wildebeest is ugly, a warthog is ugly, any of the vultures are ugly, and the marabou stork is also ugly. So we'll see pictures of these too. We'll start with the lion. The lion was pretty much like, say, the king, not of the jungle, but nothing hunts the lion, so they just walked along, pretty much like they owned the place.
Okay, this is, I have to say, most of the pictures, photos of animals and birds are Glenn's. This is mine, and I'm so proud of these two pictures. I love this picture. I'd like to paint it someday. But it's just a mother suckling with her, the babies are suckling under her. And then this is the best I could get it for the slide. And I'm gonna do it, you can hear the babies. Can anybody hear that? I have it as loud as it'll go. Can you hear it? It's just like us when we had our little babies. The mothers would sit and chat back and forth, and the little babies were just drinking their milk and playing with each other. I love that picture of them. Okay, Glenn.
Okay, these are some I took. That's a female on the left, staring intently at something. The one on the upper right, I don't know if she was roaring at something or just yawning, but anyway, they've got a mighty set of teeth there. And finally, there's the male lion. He's trying to hide behind some grass, I think. Oh, yeah. I told you there was very little shade on the Serengeti. And this female said, oh, here's some shade next to this Jeep. I'll just go in there. Would you believe one of the people in our group actually rolled down the window to try to pet this thing?
I know, I'm guilty, I did it. That was me.
And good luck, bawled her out. Get your hand back, close the window, what are you doing?
I absolutely was not going to pet the lion. I just wanted to see him better. He was laying down right there by where my seat was. I just wanted to see him. I wasn't going to put my hand out, but oh well, I was guilty.
Okay, now these are more of the big five. This is the Cape buffalo. The male is on the left. You can see they have a massive set of horns there. The females are on the right. Their horns are lesser, but they're still quite sharp, and they can use them quite effectively to protect their calves. So you don't want to get in there. Now let me point out something right up here. These are two birds. They're called, and they have a very unfortunate name, but these are yellow-billed oxpeckers. And they're on all the big animals. They're on the buffalo, they're on elephants, they're on giraffes, they're on hippopotamus, they're on rhinoceros. They eat the ticks and other bugs off the backs of the animals, and the animals know it and appreciate it. They don't try to shake them off or anything. You know, here, get one down here for me. So that's them. Now the third of the big five was the elephant. I showed you that picture back in the beginning where they had lifted the top of the Jeep and people stand up on the seats to get a better picture. This is the herd of elephants that was coming towards us. And there's one that was literally right in front of the Jeep. And then the leopards. Leopards are lesser than lions, as it were. Lions will kill leopards if they catch them out in the open. So they either hide out on these big piles of rocks, or they can go up trees, because lions mostly can't climb trees. This is the female, and this is about the 1-year-old cub. Now, the person who spotted this got on the radio and called and said, we got leopards. About 10 minutes later, there were about 12 or 13 Jeeps all around. Everybody swarmed in on it. The three in our group, plus 9 or 10 others that came in to see these leopards. And, okay.
By the way, I thought this baby leopard was pregnant. Look at that belly.
Just well fed. Okay, we hadn't seen a rhino for 4 days. The last night, one of the other Jeeps, not my Jeep, but one of the other Jeeps sort of got downwind of the rangers doing a controlled burn on this area. And suddenly, out of the smoke, came an elephant and a rhinoceros running right towards them. So this isn't my picture, this is someone who was on that Jeep. But the next morning as we left, we sort of drove past where we had seen the rhino the other day, and or they had seen the rhino that previous night, and he was still there. So I was maximum telephoto on my camera, but that's the best I could get, but it's definitely a rhino. Other animals we saw were baboons, which roamed the ground in the day but spent the night high in the trees. Of course, giraffes. There's one of the ugly five. There goes the wildebeest, and there's the warthogs. They're also ugly. And we've been pronouncing this wrong for years. They're pronounced zebras by the locals. Okay, not zebras, but zebras. So it's their animal, so that's the way they pronounce it.
And I had never seen or even heard of a wildebeest until we went on one of these safaris. So that was new for me.
Vervet monkeys, they were up in the trees. They had to be careful. They were pretty much on everybody's list of lunch menu, but they hid up in the trees. Ostriches, male and female. This is called where's the moose? There it is. This is called a serval. It's a small cat, at least by African standards. It's about the size of a collie. And it has to be careful of the other cats that are bigger than it does. But it hunts in the tall grass. This is called a kudu? No. Kopi. I had never heard of it before. It's about the fastest of the antelopes. So most of the other large cats cannot catch it. Some can. And this is kind of out of place. This is a red colobus monkey. It really doesn't belong here. It's only found in Zanzibar. But since I was doing mammals here, I thought, let me put it in here. When we get to Zanzibar, we'll mention it again. And this is yours, Donna.
Okay. Like I said, or what Glenn said, he was going out on these
Game drives.
Game drives. And after 2 or 3 days, I was tired of it. I didn't want any more tsetse flies running around me. I didn't want any sawdust around me, any dirt. I wanted to crash. So I stayed behind. And it was kind of the habit in the tents that we told you that the one person would come back, open your door, get you awake at 4:30 in the morning, and escort us to the dining room because the game drive started about 5:30, 6 o'clock. We were out early. So one day I stayed back and was sketching in the dining tent, just doing my own thing, and Hashim came by. And Hashim was he was the one that did the toilets and the showers, right? Thank you. And he was watching me, and he was giving me suggestions, and he was telling me how to do things. And I said, "Hey, Hashim, do you paint?" He said, "No, but I can see." So what I did is I gave him paper and pencils and coloring, whatever artwork I had with me. And I said, well, then tonight, after you're finished work, you draw me a painting and tell me a story about your village. And I know this is not very clear. I have the framed picture in the back. It's kind of special to me. But he told the story where all the villagers live together. They cook their food together. They eat together. It's a communal kind of way of living. And that's where they cook their meals together, eat together. But when a woman becomes pregnant, that's a very special time of a woman's life, and she is separated from the rest of the tribe. And she's put in this little house, a little thatched roof house, and that's where she stays until she has her baby. So he told me about the birds and the trees and the mountains all around his area, and he handed it to me. And I thought, oh, that is just really so sweet. So that's just something I brought back with me that I couldn't buy in the store, didn't cost any money, and it was just kind of special. I wanted to share that with you.
Okay, now we're to the part that you probably knew I was going to go to anyway. These are some of the birds. I did see 127 different bird species in Africa. 123 of them I had never seen before. In the birding community, that's called life birds. So I got 123 life birds in about 3 weeks. We'll start with the lesser flamingos.
He's not going to show you all 123 birds.
I could.
Don't take a deep breath.
And these flamingos stretched out quite a ways on either side of this picture I took, but if I'd gone to the wide angle to get all of them, they would have just put little pink spots. So I took the telephoto and just concentrated on this center section here. So those flamingos. This is called a shrike. What kind of did I call it? The hooded? No.
The white-crowned.
White-crowned shrike. We have shrikes in the United States. Not this one, but we do have shrikes here. This is my favorite bird. It's called a lilac-breasted roller. It is a beautiful bird. It's even more beautiful when it's flying. They're extremely agile in the air. I don't think a falcon could catch one. One of the ways they feed is they fly along in front of a brush fire, and as the insects are being flushed out from the fire, they swoop down, grab the insects right at the edge of the fire, but they never get burned. They're that good at fire. Now, here's another one. Some of you looking at that saying, oh, I saw that at North Park. That's a great blue heron. Well, actually, it's not. It's a gray heron, but it fills the same ecological niche as the great blue heron. Walks along the shoreline, catching fish and frogs and what have you. About the same size as a great blue heron. Then there's the crowned crane. You see the crown? This is a pretty good-sized bird. It's a bit taller than a great blue heron, but much heavier. And this one up here is a ground hornbill, about the size of a turkey, except it pretty much only eats animals, lizards, snakes, small animals. It's definitely predatory. Now this one, the pied, what did I call it? The pied wagtail. The pied wagtail. Spent 2 days trying to get a picture of this thing in its native habitat, and it kept dodging me and missing me, or he ducked behind a bush. Anyway, the second night I got back to the lodge, and they had a pool at this lodge. I said, oh, this is great. So I'm all hot and sweaty. I put my suit on, but I have learned by this time to always have my camera with me. And I walk out to the pool, and there's the pied wagtail right there in its natural habitat. Well, not really. Okay, this is another oxpecker. This is the red-billed oxpecker. He's on the back of a hippopotamus. This is all hippopotamus. This one doesn't have the red bill because it's young, but you can see they're eating insects off the back of the hippopotamus. This is an Egyptian goose. It's backed up by 3 or 4 hippopotamuses here. Okay, so they were right close. This is called a hammerkop. Look at the head. The shape of the head looks like a hammer. Get it? And this is a very rare picture of a winged wildebeest. I took this picture. I thought I was taking a picture of a wildebeest. When I got home and put it on the computer, I found out a vulture had flown right in front of it. So I'm probably the only one in the world that has a picture of a winged wildebeest. And the wildebeest is another of the ugly 5. Here's another ugly 5. This is called the marabou stork. You can decide if you think it's ugly. This is a Hadada ibis. We have some ibis, like a glossy ibis down in Florida and Georgia. But this is called a Hadada ibis. But again, it serves the same ecological niche. And I had to show you this one. This is a golden oriole. About the size of a robin. Pretty bird. But remember I said that the acacia trees had thorns. Look at the size of these thorns. Now, it does, to some extent, keep other animals from eating the acacia tree, but they're huge. And finally, we saw a few of these Nile crocodiles, second largest crocodiles in the world behind the Australia saltwater crocodile. They go to about 16 feet. This one was about 12, but they do lose people every year who go down to get water from the lake or a river, and they're not watching what they're doing, and they become alligator food or crocodile food. All right, now we're heading to Zanzibar.
Okay, here's the reason I went to Africa. I didn't care about the animals. I didn't care about the birds. I wanted to go to Zanzibar because I heard some wonderful stories about it, about the country. And Zanzibar is also called Spice Islands. It's in the Indian Ocean, about 25 miles from Tanzanian coast. And it's one of the most beautiful and charming towns in East Africa. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's a popular Tanzanian tourist destination due to its white sandy beaches. And of course there's historic Stone Town. And these two pictures, it's a very contrast between old and new. Stone Town appears to have been frozen in time 2 centuries ago when it was at its peak as the West Indian Ocean Trading Center. It's a blend of African, Arab, Indian, European cultures with a little hint of, what is it? Swahili, yes, thank you. And inside the hotels, and you see these dotted all along Stone Town. The picture on the left is the entrance to our hotel where we stayed. The picture on the right was inside, luxury. There was a swimming pool in there overlooking the ocean, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful hotel. But once we left the hotel and walked the streets of Stone Town, we had a mixture of a lot of elaborately carved doors, behind which were lavish hotels, just like the one I just showed you. And you'd get luxury and poverty at every corner you would turn. We saw many, many mosques. There were a lot of mosques. And the 5 times a day Muslim call to prayer was so haunting and beautiful. We almost got down on our knees too, because it was just so beautiful just to listen and watch and see the people all together. These 2 ladies this is one of my very favorite pictures. They wanted to have their pictures taken, and they were so friendly and wanted to know all about us, and I talked to them for quite a while. I talk to everybody when I'm on my trips, and so these women were lovely. I had to show this picture.
So they knew English?
Some of them knew English, some of them we just did hand motions to make ourselves known. But so I showed you the poshness of Stone Town. I showed you the elaborate doors that we'd see everywhere. But in between all of that, this is Stone Town. It was a view as we walked out. There are women making and selling breakfast. So if you didn't get breakfast in your hotel, you'd go there. And notice the telephone and electrical wires in view as we wandered up and down the streets. Glenn, you wanted to say something about that?
Oh, just that Donna mentioned earlier, it looked like it was frozen in time 200 years ago. And I'm sure it looked exactly like this, except for the wires. Obviously, they didn't have wires 200 years ago. But there was no rhyme nor reason. Everybody put up their own wiring system, so it looks like a spider web up there.
But we did have cell phone coverage, believe it or not. Okay. Then there were the markets. I envisioned debonair men, from some of the movies you'd watch many years ago. The men were sitting in these little coffee shops having coffee. That was my vision of Zanzibar. Did not happen. We saw market after market. And Dave, you asked how people made a living. This is how they made their living. And if you go to the Swickley Farm Market, this was street after street after street. We saw vegetables and fruits we've never seen before. You notice the fish market, and the man's up there, that's the guy selling the fish.
The fish market, yeah.
The fish market, yes.
I'd like to say something that I had never actually considered in all my years before, and that is how much refrigeration or lack of refrigeration affects a culture. These people did not have refrigeration, and we were only 100 or 150 miles south of the equator. They couldn't go out and buy 7 days worth of food at the Giant Eagle. They had to buy 1 day's worth of food and use it that day. By the next morning, it would have been spoiled. The merchants had the same problem. If they bought too many fish, for example, they would go bad. They couldn't sell them all. They couldn't sell them tomorrow. If they didn't bring enough, well, another fishmonger would get the business. So their whole culture, the eating part of their culture was all wrapped around the fact that they didn't have any refrigeration.
My question was, what happens to the food at the end of the day? I mean, it was hot. So what did they do with the food that was not sold at the end of the day? But I was told that pretty much the people that are coming in and out of the markets know what's there and what's not there and what they need. So I don't know an answer to that question.
And as a fisherman, I had to point out somebody had brought in a 7-foot swordfish the night before, and they were going to have to sell that before the end. It was pretty early in the morning when it was out there, but they have to sell it to, I don't know, they might have sold it to a restaurant or something. But
So this is not a very good picture, but I do have to tell you this story. We spent time at the site of the African Slave Market Museum. And as we went into this museum, there was no talking. You walk through and there were huge pictures as large as this screen, room after room of pictures of the old slave markets. And there was a place where there were cellars you could walk down into to see where the slaves were held before they were shipped out. I couldn't go down. I just could not. Glenn, you did go down.
I did go down, and I can't think of anything worse than disgusting. I cannot fathom why some people would do that to other people. It was just barbaric.
And when everybody came out of the cellars and we left the museum, nobody talked for at least a half hour. It was just so moving, and it was just horrific. It took us a while to come back to our lively self after being down there. But the other thing we did is we also visited the famous old dispensary and the home of Dr. David Livingstone, who lived there in Zanzibar before his famous expedition to the mainland. We visited a former palace, an Arabian fort, and also took a boat ride on the ocean. Then our time was ready to leave. We were leaving Zanzibar, leaving Stone Town, heading for the Spice Islands, famous Spice Islands, in the southernmost part of the island. And as we were driving out of Zanzibar, I had good luck stop immediately because I had to take a picture of this guy on his bicycle. Again, David, you asked how they had their living. This was his niche. He knew that there was a need for containers. This was his office. This was where he worked, on his bicycle. Just another example. I love this picture. On the way to our destination, I'm going to give you a little bit of poshness now. We've seen enough of the horror. On the way to our destination, we visited some tropical butterfly places that have butterflies. They were only in Zanzibar. We visited the spice plantation, and that was fun. I have a lot of pictures of us with, they put all kinds of spice, we brought all kinds of spices back with us. This was a guy going up the pole and throwing down coconuts to us. And I have this in video, but I didn't put it for you. But he was singing all the way up and talking to us and throwing coconuts down, trying to hit us with the coconuts. It was just a fun time. This is one of the poshest places we stayed at. This was in the southeastern part of the island. It was on Jazani Chewacca Bay National Park. And we stayed at the Fumba Beach Lodge. Everything is open. The lodge, the rooms that we had, And we were told that we had to keep all the curtains down at nighttime or anytime we were in there because the monkeys would come in and they would steal all our food. And nobody stole anything from Glenn and me, but another one of the women left her window open, her blinds up, and the monkeys came in, ate all her food, and also took away a couple of her necklaces and a scarf. And we always wondered, whatever happened to the scarf? What was a monkey going to do with that? This was right outside our lodge. On the upper right-hand corner, you can see part of a gate. There was a table and chairs where we'd sit and watch the sun go down at night. And you'd walk down those steps on the lower right all the way down to the bottom. It was way down. And low tide, you could walk the beach. And there on the left is Glenn walking the beach at low tide.
And there on the right, I was never seen again.
Yeah, right. And I have another picture where the water is right up to the upper gate there. So it's just a beautiful picture of where we stayed.
What ocean is that?
This is the Indian Ocean. One day, and this was the highlight, we took this boat around the Menai Bay area. And it's a protected marine area, and it's home to extensive coral reefs, mangrove forests, sea grasses, and tropical fish, and lots of dolphins. We went way out into the island. It was about a 3-hour boat trip. And we were able to snorkel in these warm cerulean waters. Don't you like that word, cerulean? I mean, I just loved, I had to take a picture of this to show you. We were able to snorkel and swim while the natives, our guides, caught and grilled fresh lobster, calamari, langostinos on the beach. And on the next picture, you can see on the left, our guides are making our food for us. And then we boated back to our lodge. That next morning, Glenn and I left the group. We went with a different tour group who put together the rest of the trip for us, and we're almost finished, I promise you. You're being very patient and sitting quietly. We left Zanzibar and went our way to Nairobi, Kenya. And why did we go to Nairobi, Kenya? Because it was the only way to get to Victoria Falls. And we only spent one night there, but we enjoyed the time we had. And as our flight left Zanzibar, this was our only view of the mountain Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro is one of the world's 7 summits. Denali and Everest are only higher. And Kilimanjaro means mountain of whiteness or shining mountain. It has a very significant significance to the Tanzanians. It's a holy site for them. And to them, it's a symbol of strength and courage and beauty. This is what Kilimanjaro looks like on a sunny day. You can hike without gear, and I have to say that because my son is a mountain climber. He has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and he usually has the mountain gear and climbs up the side of mountains. Well, this is one where you hike. And climbing is like going from the equator to the Arctic because there are 5 distinct climate zones on Kilimanjaro. And this is what it looks like when you hit the summit, and that young man on the left happens to be my son. And Glenn said, "You really don't need that picture, Donna. It's not part of the presentation." I want to be proud of my son. He climbed Kilimanjaro and survived. Okay. So we get into Nairobi, Kenya. We have a private guide, takes us around. We visited the Baroness Karen Blixen Coffee Plantation and Museum. You remember the movie Out of Africa with Meryl Streep and Robert Redford? That was fun. We toured.
It was written, Baroness Karen Blixen wrote under the pseudonym of Isaac Deason. Isaac Deason, I'm not sure I pronounced it right, but we were at her plantation.
Yeah, we were there about a month after the massacre in Nairobi, and our guide took us into and showed us the slums of Nairobi, Kenya. You've never seen anything like it. If you've been there, you'll know what we're talking about. It was really just very humbling to watch or to see that. We also went to the Kazuri ceramic beads, jewelry, and pottery. Kazuri means small and beautiful. It was started by Lady Susan Wood, an American, and she started it with 2 African women. She discovered there were many women in Africa around Nairobi who were single mothers, needed work, but had no health care. She started out with 2 women and to start the bead company. Ended up, when we were there, 236 workers that came in every day, and there was health care right on the property. A hospital, health care clinic, daycare for the children so that the mothers could work. And a lot of the beads and jewelry and pottery is distributed all around the world. And if you're familiar with 10,000 villages, a lot of the work from Kazuri is in 10,000 villages. And there are some samples of what we purchased in the back of the room.
Yeah, we got the 2 cups that you'll see back there. We got them at that
Right.
place.
From there, we were only there one night, and from there we flew from Nairobi to Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe. And Mbosi Oa Tanya means mountain that roars.
Smoke. Smoke that
Oh,
roars.
smoke that roars. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Smoke that roars.
Smoke that roars. Okay. And in Victoria Falls, we wandered around. The pants I'm wearing came from there. We went into the villages, the markets. There were amazing sunsets, and we went on a riverboat cruise the first night on the Zambezi River. And Glenn was absolutely in his element.
Yeah, I saw at least a dozen different birds that night, so I made arrangements with a local who was a birding expert to take me out the next morning. Got maybe the last 23 of my 123 live birds. Also should point out that we're on the Zambezi River about 2 miles upstream from the falls, so we were sure hoping he didn't run out of gas.
Yeah. On our sunset cruise, we saw a lot of, I keep wanting to call them the hippopotami on the left. In fact, and I love the picture of the one on the right opening his mouth. I'm not sure what he was looking for, but while we were there on the left, you can't see it, and I have no pictures of it, but there were 2 humongous hippopotami mating. It was quite noisy. And amazing sunsets. I could give you 100 photos just of the sunsets we saw all over Africa. This was on the riverboat cruise. Then the very next day, and the whole reason we went to Victoria Falls is to see the falls. And again, we had a private guide that took us around and showed us and took us to places in the falls that the most tourists don't get to see. And Glenn's going to tell you show you a few of the pictures, but keep in mind that the pictures you see, it was in a period of drought, and he said the falls are maybe not even 1/3 of what they should be. So but this one, we were waiting for our guide to take us, and these, again, school children came up, wanted to take our pictures, and we had fun sharing photos and emails. Glenn.
Okay, so this is Victoria Falls. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile from this end to this end, okay? This picture was taken from a helicopter or a drone, I guess. I got it off the internet. This is the Zimbabwe side, and this is the Zambia side, right. We had a choice of going to either one. We could have gone to the Zambia side or the Zimbabwe. We chose the Zimbabwe side because they were having trouble with rogue elephants over here. So we thought, well, let's just stay over here. We won't bother the elephants. So we got to walk alongside opposite. We were looking at the waterfalls across the Gulf. Now, way up here, there's a little spot. That's this guy. I put the telephoto on so you could see him. He was fishing there. He was literally that close to the fall. But because it was drought, he was fine. He wasn't being swept away. At some other time of the year, he would have been swept right over the falls. Because of the drought, a lot of the rock walls were visible there. Normally, you just see water going over it, but we could see some of the rock walls. Plus, over here, I think we have a different picture of it too.
Yeah, we do.
Well, okay. The guide knew where to stand to see the rainbow and what time to see it. So we got the picture of that rainbow. But these are where those people are standing. This is called the Devil's Bathtub. It's a place where there's a rock projection that sticks up a little bit, and it forms a bathtub, essentially something the size of a bathtub. And you can put your bathing suit on, and you can go in there and just stay there for a while. Someday, that rock projection is going to go, and anybody in there is going with it. So that's why it's called the Devil's Bathtub. But at least when we were there, it wasn't. Oh, and this is one of the places where the rock, the water wasn't running over. You can see how rugged the rocks were. We're almost done.
About 3 or 4 more slides and then we're done. This is the Victoria Hotel in Victoria Falls. It was opened in 1907, and it was a visiting place for royalty during the reign of Kings George V and VI and Queen Elizabeth. It was a location for an Agatha Christie movie, and for 24 hours, we really felt like we were in the past. We felt very royal. Several highlights of just the Victoria Hotel. You notice it says warning, animals roam, so do not touch any of the animals.
It's not fenced in.
No. And on the right, you see some warthogs, and you see a woman who's laying there lounging with the warthogs right there by her bench.
It's totally oblivious. Anyway, remember it was called the smoke that roars? That's the smoke. After you see it's not really smoke, it's from the waterfall. But you can hear it from here. So the people that first heard it and saw that called it the smoke that roars.
And did you say it was only about 2 miles from our hotel, so we could really hear it very clearly. The finale, the last night we were in Victoria Falls before we headed back to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in reality. There was a great big outdoor garden, and they had a banquet for all the residents or all the people that were staying there, and they had entertainment. And it was entertainment by different cultural ceremonies, different cultural groups, different tribes. And the pictures are not clear. It was nighttime, it was dark. I couldn't get many pictures that were clear, but it'll just give you an idea, a little bit of some of the customs and the ceremonies of the natives people. I love the guys behind on the left. We probably watched 8 or 9 different groups, and we were there for hours. And then this one I don't have a video of, but I loved this group, and they were just very animated, and it was just special. So that was our trip to Victoria Falls. That was our trip to Africa. Early in the morning, we got on another plane, flew to Johannesburg, South Africa. And as we go, this is our entrance to the Johannesburg airport. I have this in video, but for some reason it wouldn't show. But they asked us to dance with them, and of course we danced again. So it's just a picture, and it looks like Glenn is upset with me. He says, I want to go home and get rid of this woman. He looks like he's about ready to attack me with that spear. But that's it. Thank you very much for letting us. Thank you. We've enjoyed putting this together, And we really tried to make it an hour. In the back of the room, there are 2 articles that I wrote for Oat Magazine and also for the travel agency that did our last part of the trip. There are copies back there if you'd like any, just take one. And otherwise, we have questions, or go home for dinner, or Glenn and I will be around.
We'll
for a
hang
little bit.
around for a bit.
Thanks.
Well done, Don.